Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. We've got a great show for you today. We've got a birthday of a really cool astronaut, Charlie Precourt. We're going to talk about the Shuttles of June, particularly two MIR missions to June. Both involve Charlie Precourt. And we're going to talk about STS-4, the last time America flew just two humans to space. Of course, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley flew to space on the private spaceship Blue of SpaceX a couple years ago. So glad that you're with us today. Marty, I got a rocket behind me. If I scoot around here, that was not too good of a choice for a blue screen there, because as I scoot around there, green screen, I mean. There we are. Now they can see the beautiful rocket over my launch here. This,
Okay, so I'm going to do this.
pardon me?
I'm going to do this.
Okay. Well, I hope we're doing good. We've had a few little hiccups this week. We don't know what's going on, but give us a shout out if we're coming through loud and clear. And we wanted to let everybody know that the American Space Museum is renovating our facility. We're going to be closed from July 18th for at least 2 weeks, maybe the first week of August, as we have new carpet put in our beautiful museum. We can't wait for that. And we have our conference room in disarray because we've taken down the wood paneling look, and we've got drywall up there to be painted. So a lot of good things happening here at the American Space Museum. And we're going to do a little fundraiser with Chris Calley and his father Paul's beautiful artwork on T-shirts. And we are going to launch that on our program Friday with Triple T. Thursday, we've got a great show in store with Jay Honeycutt, former KSC director, is going to be here with a NASA legend, Butch Stevens. The two of them brought the thermal protection system of the space shuttle into the NASCAR vehicles to help keep those drivers, particularly their feet, from getting burned. It was a bad problem they had. So glad that you're all with us, following us on YouTube and Facebook, and tell your friends to follow and subscribe. And get them on board there, particularly YouTube. We are monetizing that, and that's very important. And we just wanted to let you know that we are a proud nonprofit celebrating the birth of the American space age right here in this delivery room, Brevard County. And just 9 miles from where Marty Winkle and I are sitting is a blue SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on the pad, ready to be launched at 5:04 today. So Marty Winkle, my co-producer for over 600 episodes, couldn't do it without him. We're going to do our show and then just go out the back door and watch a rocket launch. So rubbing it in a little bit there, Dave Stange up there in Michigan, he can watch it on TV along with Larry Pushker up there. So we wanted to let you know that if you want to give money to our nonprofit, you can give with confidence, as the Charter Navigator, which is a guide to giving, has given the American Space Museum and our foundation, the U.S. Space Walk of Fame, a 95 out of 100 give with confidence rating. So you can't get much better than that. And we are a proud Florida 501c3, and your money is used very frugally for things that we need here at our museum. So that means no raises for a long time, Marty. Actually, I'm one of 4 paid employees. Marty's an unreal volunteer, his time, and he does other things in the background. And we're just blessed and grateful that we're growing thanks to you out there. And we know that stay curious is no small part of our success. So, Marty, let's look and see what we got here today to talk about. Let me put my pictures up there. We wanted to thank everybody for participating in our successful 20th auction this weekend. We don't have the total tallies in, but usually an auction nets our museum a good $30,000 of general fund income that we desperately need to keep the doors open. And the other $150,000 or so that we sold in items goes to consigners out there. They'll be quite happy when everything is sold, and then they can cut the checks here in a few weeks. So thank you for participating in our auction over the weekend. We're going to have one in about 5 weeks in July, and I don't have the date with me. We also want to thank this gentleman, who's Gary Harris there. Hi, Gary, with me. That was when Gary appeared old school style on our program. He was here yesterday talking about the space suits, the new contract given out, kind of clearing the muddied waters of all that. That is one of the space suits that Gary designed right there behind us. I failed to show this picture yesterday. And see the three little mini space suits? That's what Gary does as a hobby, puts those together. So you can get in touch with me and he'll make one for you. But thank you, Gary Harris. Great asset to our museum. He's a fabulous supporter. And I've heard from several of you that really enjoyed his program yesterday. It got a little technical, and that's okay because he is a technical guy. He's a commercial diver that has done crazy things inside of very serious diving apparatus. I'm talking been around radioactive tanks and so forth, changing filters. Marty, we have a question.
Yeah, they saying wants to know, will you still be having shows during the shutdown?
Good question. Yes, we will. We're going to continue stay curious. Marty and I decided, as our whole museum staff is going to work as status quo, we might, and we'll record some shows so that we can get a little time off. But don't worry, you'll still get your fix to stay curious, all right? I know some of you hear my voice in the nighttime, and I pity you. All right, let's kick off here. A happy birthday to this gentleman, Charlie Precourt. And this guy deserves a party hat. I'm telling you. All right, maybe, want to move over this way more, Marty?
Oh, no, maybe the other way.
Okay, Marty's moving me around here a little bit. Charlie Precourt is 67 years old today, and he deserves my birthday hat. He was because he was a mission specialist who become a pilot, who become twice a commander, and 3 of his missions were to the MIR space station. So he's a very interesting astronaut. Happy 67th birthday, 4-time space flyer, Charlie Joseph Precourt, born June 29th, 1955, in Waltham, Massachusetts, but he considers Hudson, Massachusetts, to be his hometown. No doubt he's getting birthday greetings from his Russian comrades, as he's fluent in all kinds of languages, but he was heavily involved in the Russian-U.S. space relations as well as the International Space Station collaboration. He was also chief of the astronaut office from 1998 to 2002. He's a retired Air Force colonel. Marty, I'd love to meet this guy. I don't know if he does a talk out at the Space Center. I'm there. His 39 days in space started out as a mission specialist on the German D2 lab. Then he trained to be a pilot for STS-71, the first docking of the MIR space station. There he is in the driver's seat of a shuttle. That might be the pilot's seat there. He went again. Then he commanded STS-71, docked with the MIR space station on June 27th. I mean, it was launched on June 27th, and it docked on June 29th, his 40th birthday. How cool would that be? And I just watched a video. Charlie said that his Ellen Baker and who was the other woman up there with him sang happy birthday to him in front of a blow-up cake. And he said that was right in the middle of him preparing to dock with the MIR an hour before when he was getting everything together. And he later thought, did they really do that, or was I dreaming that? And he said, such is your day planned in space. Every moment has a time slot for it. Well, Precourt again commanded Atlantis on STS-84, the 6th docking of MIR in May. And finally, he commanded Discovery on the final docking of MIR in STS-91 in June 98. And as we look at the shuttles of June, you're going to see that the first and last docking of the MIR did indeed happen in June. Let's see what else about this fascinating guy. He retired from NASA in 2004, was a vice president of orbital ATK that got absorbed by Northrop Grumman, and he's been a vice president and general manager there at Northrop Grumman. So, Charlie Precourt, happy 67th birthday to you. Now, and there he is in the MIR space station. Take off my birthday hat. Well deserved there for Mr. Precourt. To take off my hat on a sad note, the first humans to die in space happened on this date, June 29th, 1971. This is the crew of Soyuz 11. All right, they were aboard the first spaceship of Russia, Salyut 1, which, of course, 1971 preceded our Skylab by 2 years. The crew was Georgy Dobrovsky, Vlad Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev. And they arrived at the world's first space station in June 7th and left June 29th. The mission ended in disaster when the crew pressure capsule depressurized during re-entry, killing them. A valve cracked open about 1/16 of an inch and let all the air out. And there they were when they landed, serenely in their couch. They knew they didn't have any communications the last minute when they were floating under the parachute, and they wondered about that. And that was why, because they were died kind of quietly in their chairs. The cosmonauts were given a long state funeral and buried in the Kremlin wall at Red Square. Tom Stafford, General Tom Stafford, was one of the pallbearers, American space hero. And it was just took everyone by surprise. But their 20 days on the MIR, 28 days on their first space station was very harrowing. 24 days they were on that space station. There were some dangerous moments. They almost evacuated a couple times when it lost pressure and so forth. So this was a very stressful flight for these gentlemen, for that to end in death. Soyuz 11, the backup crew was could have been the crew to go to the moon. This crew was training to go to the moon, actually, as was their backup crew. So they did try to, no crew ever went back up to Soyuz 1. It was deorbited. But first space fatality, these are the only, the second astronauts to die actually in space, okay? They had the first Soyuz mission, cosmonaut died in it, but it was because his parachutes tangled, and he didn't die in space. He died because the capsule hit at 500 miles an hour, and that was Komarov. So we remember that in history. Here's a photo they took that was retrieved of the Salyut 1, just a core module, 2 modules together with some solar panels, about as big as a Greyhound bus or school bus. And there they lay in state at Red Square there. So very sad, very, it set back their program a little bit also. Well, Shuttles of June here we have. And the Shuttles of June, 11 of them. We've gone through most of them. Of course, we talked a lot about STS-7, which was Sally Ride, the first American woman to go to space. We had Hugh Harris, voice of NASA, on at the beginning of the month to talk about the public relations circus that was around Sally Ride. I talked to Mr. Harris today, and we're going to book him for July 4th. Is that the first Wednesday in July? Next Wednesday, we're going to have Hugh Harris on to talk about the Shuttles of July, all right? And I think there's 11 of those in July. The one that stands out, of course, would be the return to flight after the Columbia disaster of STS-114, spearheaded or commanded by Eileen Collins. So Eileen Collins also is a pilot of the Gamma Ray Observatory that was launched in July. So I got Mr. Hugh Harris, who's 89 years old, working on his show for next week, and he can't wait to do it. Always a pleasure talking to Mr. Hugh Harris, the voice of NASA. And that's what we've done here at the American Space Museum. And stay curious, is we've made some friends and built some bridges with some really important people in the NASA community for you to hear their stories and for them to bridge the space between us. We've got Mr. Hugh Harris lined up. We've got Mikey Haddad does payloads, and we're going to bring Mr. Terry White, the guy with the famous mustache, will be doing the Terry's Garage, I think we're going to call it, where he's going to talk about the orbital processing facilities, the garage of the shuttles, where Terry was a manager of that. So a lot of good stuff in the works here, and hope I can keep up with it all. Okay. So what we got next here? We wanted to talk a little bit about MIR because as we're looking at the missions there, on June 2nd was the last mission to MIR, STS-91, which Charlie Precourt was the commander of. And the first mission to MIR was launched on June 27th, STS-71, where Charlie was a pilot. And there is the MIR space station as it looked by a reconnaissance around it. That big pole off to the top left there, Marty, sticking out with like the big box on the end of it. That is how they changed the orbit of it. That's a little motor on the end of that with some, I'm not sure if it's solid rockets or gas there, okay, but that's how they would change the height of it up there. Basically, it looks like a big mess, all right, all these modules that they stuck together and put solar panels here and there, but that's what it looked like. And there's Charlie Precourt. Thank you, Mark Usiak, a photo he took this month at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. That's Janet Cavandy above my head there. Off to Charlie's shoulder there, looks like Kay Hire there, but Charlie Precourt there autographing something. I did not go to that. And there he is talking to Bruce Melnick. Hi, Bruce. Bruce is the astronaut coordinator out there, Kennedy Visitors Complex, and a great friend of our museum. There is the shuttle docked to the MIR. Look at how much that makes the MIR look so tiny. Look at that gigantic shuttle there, and each module of the MIR can easily fit in the cargo bay of the shuttle. But that had to be something. And of course, they would do a purge of the air, get all that nasty air that in the MIR out of there. And put new oxygen in there to freshen it up, so to speak. What other things? We had the MIR was up in space for about 12 years. It had all kinds of problems, though. Here's the mishmash of hoses that go from the different units. Here's the central area where you go to 3 different modules floating through space and going through those holes there. But you see, they've got air vents going there because air's got to be moved in a space station with fans and so forth, or just stay where it is. So there could be oxygen over here and nitrogen to breathe, but over here it might not be as much concentration. So this was a problem when they had a fire and also a crash. A cargo ship crashed in there, was trying to cut all those wires and get the hose out of the way in time and cover it. Those sections that have been damaged. Here is Jerry Lininger wearing a face mask after a fire erupted on the MIR space station. The fire was caused by a canister that is burned to put oxygen in the air. All right, it's a lithium type of canister chemical reaction, and it caught fire like to the drapes in the place. It wasn't drapes, it was something caught fire, and they had a time of it for a while. In that congested area, just imagine, having a fire in a school bus or 2 of them linked together, and the air quality is going to be horrible immediately. There was also a cargo ship that crashed in. You can see the big hole right there as a hole, or I guess I could do it this way too. There's a big hole in there where a cargo ship was coming in, and the cosmonaut was trying to control it with joysticks, and it got out of control, and they were lucky it didn't smash into the module Spectre where David Wolf was living, but it had that section had to be shut off. His personal hygiene kits and everything was left in there. But we have sold occasional things from the MIR. This is a payload bay liner that was on STS-71. Typical thing we'll sell for $20 on eBay or bundle it with something else. And we've also sold these aluminum coins of the NASA MIR program, all right, that has on the back that it actually contained metal from the shuttle Atlantis and the MIR space station. So, we love space-flown metals. The whole metal wasn't flown. They had a metal ring off of a binder that was a set of instructions or something that they threw into the vat of liquid to make that. So always fascinating about space-flown metal on there. So we hope that you're enjoying today. We know that Mark Usiak is. Thank you. Carlton Bailey is watching. Carlton's out there at the Cape Canaveral right now, pad 40, waiting for the launch that he's going to photograph. He said he'll send us some pictures. We'll maybe post them tomorrow. Ophelia, we to you, Ophelia in Normandy, France. Tom Usiak is online. Thank you, Tom. Enjoyed talking to you yesterday. And Dave Stangy, Robert Law, and Daniel Hunnyson. Thank you for watching. Or who is that? Dan? Paul. Anyway, Hunnyson, thank you for watching. And I'll bet Peggy Honeycutt's watching with her husband Jay, because they're always in the background of our social media there, and we appreciate that. So we appreciate everybody who supports our museum. Again, we got a rocket launch just 9 miles from where we're sitting in this beautiful museum where we celebrate the birth of America's space age with artifacts that you'll never see anywhere else. I guarantee that. And well, let's segue now into the launch of the last two-man crew that America ever launched, okay? NASA's last time they launched 2 crew members was 40 years ago on June 27th, 1982. It was Henry Hartsfield, who's passed away, and Ken Mattingly. And one of the payloads was this canister that Carlton Bailey shot this. Thank you for sharing. This was 9 scientific experiments were in this canister, a classified U.S. Air Force payload, and they monitored the flight. Mattingly was an active naval duty officer, later described the classified payload as a rinky-dink collection of minor stuff they wanted to fly. That's a quote from Wikipedia. And the payload failed to operate, actually. So they did some science on there, electrophoresis. They did a lightning survey, and they operated the remote manipulator arm that Canada built, and that was a very important thing. And Columbia landed on July 4th, 1982 at Edwards Air Force Base, the first orbital shuttle landing at a concrete runway out there at Edwards. And President Reagan and his wife Nancy greeted the crew upon arrival. It was quite a 4th of July celebration. Many of us might remember that now that we mentioned it. I think John Zarella was reporting that for CNN out there. We're going to have John on the show here very soon. His son owns a very popular pizzeria called Zarella's on Cape Canaveral. We're not going to talk about John Zarella about pizza. We're going to talk about his opinions of the space program and his 30 or so year career working as a space reporter. Let's see, STS-4, the last two-man flight, like I said, there is the balded Ken Mattingly, who Ken Mattingly, of course, went to the moon on Apollo 16. Peter Allward knows that. He's watching from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you, sir. How is the morning breaking there for you? And William Whiting, thank you for watching. All kinds of new names, Marty. We're so grateful for that. We're grateful for all of you regulars, but getting new people is what social media is all about. So please tell your friends that we give you some content that you're not going to get anywhere else. And who's going to have Jay Honeycutt on their show talking about teaming with NASCAR to solve the heat problem inside the cockpit of those drivers' cars? Nobody but Stay Curious and Mark and Marty, okay? Thank you very much. So Hartsfield there, what a beautiful head of hair. I think Henry Hartsfield had the best hair of any male astronaut. Okay, Marty, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Marty's like, Mark, what are you talking about? Don't have a man crush on him, okay? But he does have a beautiful head of hair. God bless him. We lost him. I wrote down the date he died, and that's over on the desk there. He died way too young during a back procedure. He died during a back surgery, unfortunately. And I'm thinking that might be 10 years ago for Mr. Hartsfield. This was the last research and development flight of the program, after which NASA considered the shuttle operational. There's the beautiful launch of it, taken by Mr. Nolte. Thank you, Steve Nolte, part of the USIAC Brothers team. Beautiful shot there, Steve. Thank you for sharing your photos with us. After this flight, Columbia's ejection seats were deactivated, which I believe were like designed from a U-2 plane, right, Marty? The ejection seats. Or it might be the Blackbird. I'm not sure the Blackbird was in operation then. So this was the last time that a crew wore pressure suits. As you can see them here on the walkout, they got the orange pressure suits on. They went to just the blue flight suits that could never be seen in an ocean, by the way. Don't know why they chose that color if they had to ditch in the ocean. And until, of course, STS-26, when that was returned to flight after the horrible Challenger explosion. This was, let's see. What was interesting about the landing was after President Reagan's speech, there were remarks by Madeleine Hartsfield and a flyover by the new Space Shuttle Challenger atop the shuttle carrier aircraft. So that was a moment with Columbia orbital number 102 on the runway and the tail number Challenger OV-109 flying overhead atop the converted 747 headed to Kennedy Space Center to be worked over by Terry White and his other crews like Terry to get it ready for space. So, Marty, that puts the button on our Shuttles of June, okay, because we're going to end June 30th with a bang with this gentleman here, Mr. Jay Honeycutt, and proud Louisianan, and this was Mr. Honeycutt at our Shuttle Fest in April, and he is really, he did a great talk on the politics of the shuttle being financed 50 years ago in April 72 by the Nixon administration for $5.5 billion, all right, and in the end, a shuttle cost about $4 billion. But thank you, Mr. Honeycutt, for supporting our museum and wanting to be part of Stay Curious. He will be here tomorrow with this gentleman on the left, who's Dowson, famous NASCAR driver. That is Bill Elliott in Victory Lane. Of course, Wild Bill, a well-known race driver. And that is Mr. Butch Stevens, who's quite a character and quite a well-known NASA figure. He's been involved in many, many things, and one of the things he's involved in was taking shuttle thermal protection tile and putting it in NASCARs. And we're going to hear all about that tomorrow from Mr. Jay Honeycutt and Butch Stevens. So, Marty, thank you for a smooth Streamlabs control there. After all, Marty worked computers on the shuttle engines as a manager, so we're happy that he can handle the Streamlabs there. Any other comments, Marty, from our wonderful viewers?
No.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here and go watch another single-stick rocket take off 9 miles away from here. I believe you might be able to watch that on Space Flight Now. All right. It's not on NASA TV because it's not a NASA payload. And there's another launch tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow evening, starting at 6 o'clock, a spy satellite situation by United Launch Alliance. So we're looking forward to all these launches. I'm looking forward to Carlton Bailey helping you stay curious with his photos of today's launch that we'll post on Facebook. And we hope that you can book your tour. We were full of people today, a lot of kids, a lot of families for a Wednesday, just very busy. So we're glad that you're all finding our little gem of a space museum here. So on behalf of our whole space museum, led by our terrific director, Karan Conklin, who's put her heart and soul for almost 2 decades into this museum. The last 4 as a director. Karan, we love you and the direction you're taking the museum with a board of directors that's really behind her. So hope that you can book your trip here to sunny Florida and see our museum here in Titusville. Until then, Marty, thank you. I'm Mark Marquette, and we'll see you tomorrow with Mr. Jay Honeycutt to bridge the space between us.